we ask that question, and we ask who's the mortgage is their mortgage insurance company, and these decision makers, they do not have any legal obligation to tell us. Now, we have other ways to find it out. Yes. I do have a representative in Washington that I get to call every now and then and complain that this company won't give me this information. It's important as how to guide you in making a decision whether you know whether Wachovia is the lender and our approach, and if there's mortgage insurance or not. It makes a difference, but there's no legal requirement. Good question.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. One of the things I'd like to add to it, you may recall the internet. Now we've come out with these sites where you can determine if Fannie Mae owns your loan or Freddie Mac owns your loan, or if it's an FHA or a VA. So you can tell if the government owns your loan. FHA and VA would be the same, but you can't tell if a private entity, like she said, when Wachovia closes your loan, where the bulk of these loans seem to be, are in mortgage-backed securities. And so they actually have a number, and the number owns your loan. And a lot of people own a portion of that number. And somebody has the decision-making authority for that number, if you will. And ultimately, the real thing is who has the ability to make the decision. And so you first deal with that because who owns it can be meaningful in terms of the approach, but who makes the decision is more meaningful.
Talk about the servicing. Is that, the servicer may not have that. They have a contractual obligation.
And Tracy touched on that. I like that. I'm a wholesale lender by trade as well. And so loans, I've put millions of loans into Wall Street. We call it the secondary market. I used to give an analogy of like the ocean. Just think the ocean is full of water and you can't deplete it. And that's kind of how Wall Street seemed. And you get water in your pool and you go get it from the ocean, and you take it out your pool, you can throw it in the ocean. You almost can't even see an effect. That's what this secondary market has been like. And so every time you get a pool, if you will, they assign this number to your pool because your pool water came from this portion of the ocean. And somebody has decision-making capability to monitor that. And they have a fiduciary or a financial responsibility to all of us who've invested in that ocean. And so, they want to do the right thing, even though sometimes it's really hard because it's convoluted contractually, in terms of what they can do and can't do and who thinks is a sound decision and not a sound decision. And that's why I said you just focus first on who's the decision maker before I'm as concerned with who owns it. And then secondarily, as I mentioned earlier, what can I afford to pay them? What seems reasonable for them to be able to afford to take? Because we do live in a capitalistic society.
I was just going to say that certainly I would believe that if you were to call and ask who owns your loan, there's probably no legal requirement for them to tell you. Certainly it's very important in the process. It was probably more important a while back. I think nowadays banks have got better processes in place to handle short sales, foreclosures, deficiencies. You go back a couple years, there were a couple banks that I knew that were actually European banks being serviced by companies here. I had a client lived in his house for a year and a half without making a payment, without even receiving notice, serviced by the same bank that, could have been servicing for another, owner of a different piece of paper that had a foreclosure that went through in 4 months. So it's very important, but I think nowadays banks are getting better and a little more streamlined in the process. But if you can find that out, more power to you.